Ahoy friends, welcome to building the Alpha Dory. I'm Dan, and this is a project to build a Chamberlain racing dory from John Gardner's The Dory Book. Illustrations by Sam Manning. Today we'll be out in the shop and in the yard working on the spars. Okay, so couple videos ago we cut out the spars, and the next step in that is marking the spars with a spar gauge to cut them. Getting close to launch day now. We're sort of in the final push to get the boat ready to go in the water in a week and a half. Alright, so we use the spar gauge to mark the spars so that we can then cut to those marks, and we'll have 8-sided the spar, and then we can 16-side it, and then 32-sided, or it's pretty much round at that point, and then sand it. So the spar marking gauge is just a very simple little block of scrap wood with you want fairly small nails. I guess it depends how big a spar you're making, but the smaller the nail, the more accurate. And put the edge of the inside edge of the nail right at the point that you're measuring. So this is a 4-inch spar gauge, and the deer flies are out here like crazy. So this is a 4-inch spar gauge, and the ratio is 2 to 1. So 4 inches here, 2 inches here, and then an inch and an inch on either side of the marking tines. And so if you remember from the last video, when we were spar making, the spars are tapered on the ends. So we'll start with the boom because we're going to round the boom, and we'll use the gauge on all 4 sides in this case. And so really all you need to do is simply take the gauge, rotate it till the pins are touching either side of the spar, and then just drag it along, and it'll score a line. And everything outside the line you'll remove. So we're going to go the length of the boom with this. Then we'll rotate the boom. Then we'll go the length of the boom again. And then what we do is we take the mark on this edge and the mark that's made on this edge, and we connect those 2 marks, and that's the 8 sides. And it's a pretty simple principle in that a 45-degree angle of a distance is half what the actual distance is going to be. That's how the ratio works. It doesn't matter if the gauge goes off track as long as you push it back to 45, because the scribes will only wander to the outside. You know, as it goes flatter, it gets wider. So you won't be accidentally scribing into the piece of wood that you're going to be left with. You'll just be marring up the pieces that you're going to cut off anyway. And like I said, I'll flip it over and get on to the next side. And do this to all four sides. Once this is done to all four sides, we'll be ready to get out the draw knife and do some cutting. Alright, so I'll bring you back once I've got the other two sides marked. Alright, so the spar marking gauge has done its work. Now what I'll do is go back along and come as close as I feel like I can, depending on what the wood grain is doing to the lines that we struck with the spar marking gauge. So if the wood is going in a bad direction on this pull, then I'll spin the spar or flip the spar, cut a different side, and then when I turn the spar around, I'll cut this side, the side where the grain isn't favorable. So you can see it takes a couple draws to get down to the mark, and you want to get right down to it and get right down to the mark. If you're up against a knot, you may not want to take the mark at that point, but you want to get close to it, because you want to get right down to each mark, because when you do the 16 siding, if you're not right down, it's going to get, you're going to realize, oh, I didn't take off enough, and then you got to go back, and that's when things get wonky. You want to get as much as you can the first run, get as close as you can the first run. And so you'll see that I also, I'll go back over this with my long hand plane, which is kind of perfect for this. I don't often reach for it in the shop because I'm not typically planing something that's that straight. Even in planing of a dory plank. The little short plane does the job just fine. This is like a big long jointing plane. So it's kind of helpful in the spar making because it keeps you from putting any dips or whoops in the spar. And you can see I've got a simple stop here in the I'm using the house, or the house with a board to protect the siding from the end of the spar. And yeah, it's just because when you're pulling with the drum, I feel likely to capsize the sawhorses unless you got them somehow weighted or bolted down. So yeah, I've gone pretty much the length of this side. So I got to do another 3 sides. And we'll be ready to get the plane out. Get this, and then 16 side it. Sure I'm still on the... Yeah, so spar making is a fairly old practice, and of course on big boats it was a whole trade in and of itself. The rigging of these clipper ships and whatnot was a whole separate occupation from boat building. But on the small boats like the dories and whatnot, the dory maker was also a spar maker. Yeah, the strawberry flies are out big time. Delta wings. Deer flies. They have a pretty nasty little bite to them, not as bad as a greenhead. And they're not as prolific as mosquitoes. You know, when mosquitoes really come out, they come out by the dozens or more, sometimes hundreds. Whereas the strawberry flies usually come in 3s or 4s when they're bad, 5s or 6s. I guess they really attack deer and horses pretty badly. But all right, so now I can I'm gonna spin the mast around, and I think I'll get a better run of the grain going in this direction on these two sides. Better in this direction. I may flip it around again and do this end in that direction, but yeah, you get the picture, and I'll bring you back once I'm done with the 8 siding. Alright, so some of you guys may have been watching and wondering, and sort of muttering to yourselves that, well, okay, so 2 to 1 to 1 isn't the ratio of a hexagon. That's very true. It's a lot closer to if you were going to be marking this with a pencil, then I'd suggest setting your marking gauge to 3 to 4 to 3. You'll get a lot closer to a hexagon, but the marking gauge I'm using uses scribes. It says scribes rather than a pencil. So the depth that those scribes go to actually increases the width of the line, more or less, that you're cutting, because as you cut down, see, I'm still seeing the scribe lines even though I'm well below the surface. So you end up with a effectively wider scribe than the actual position of the scribes. And that's why just when the scribe lines disappear is when you're just about equal on the faces. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, is I'm just taking it down past the scribe lines. you can see we're producing quite a bit of waste because we're taking off a fair amount of wood. I've got the plane set fairly deep. These blocks help. They allow me to keep the system working on upright, which is nice when you're planing. It's not as big a deal when you're doing the not as big a deal when you're doing the draw knife. Yeah, so like I say, spar making was part of the regular jobs in the dory shop. You kind of got to be a jack of all trades. Be able to do a bit of everything if you're going to be building dories. Alright, so now I'll spin this around and plane the other end. Alright, so we've 8-sided our spar. Boom. And there you can see the amount of fairly heavy shavings we've made. And so next time we'll 16 side and hopefully even get ready to sand. Thanks so much for stopping by building the Alpha Dory. Look forward to seeing everybody next episode when we continue on with the spar making. We may actually get started on the mast, and then we'll follow up with the 16 siding once we get everything 8-sided. Anyway, yeah, thanks for stopping by. A massive thank you to everybody who's liked, subscribed, and all the donations that I've got in support of the channel. So thanks so much, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody out on the water real soon.